We have that potential now to really work together more as a kind of integrated body rather than individual research institutes.
You cluster them.
You cluster them and you try to also break down some of the walls that are currently existing as far as RIs are concerned. And as I said, the emphasis will start to also be a bit more on programs that cut across the RI's boundaries, So energy is one example.
How does industry get into the picture?
Relative to the universities, A-Star definitely is positioned to be working much more closely with industry. So there are many ways in which we interact with industry. Maybe let me give the example of our collaboration with Rolls-Royce in the fuel cell area, which is also under the energy program. In that case, what happened was when Rolls-Royce were thinking of, doing some R&D in Singapore as part of, their engagement with Singapore and Singapore putting in some money into the company and so on, as far as the fuel cell area was concerned, they were actually talking to quite a number of different parties in Singapore, the two universities especially, and also A-Star. Eventually, they decided to have a big program with A-Star. And that required them to actually interact with 4 or 5 different research institutes. Now, because these research institutes were still under A-Star, I think they felt that at least they had, a reasonably a good group of people providing good expertise and capabilities that were relevant under umbrella of one organization. So A-Star became, in some sense, the preferred partner for them. So under this program at the moment,
what year was it that Rolls-Royce formalized the relationship?
This was about 3 years ago. Yeah. And resulting from that collaboration, what is basically the arrangement is that each site puts in a certain number of money, X million dollars, equal amount in this case, and agree to form a management committee that consists of both A-Star and Rolls-Royce representatives, in fact together with other agencies involved as well. And together they actually decide on specific projects under this program, under this collaboration. So today, we already have more than 20 projects that have either taken place or are ongoing between Rolls-Royce and A-Star research institutes. So for each project, we decide on, okay, where is it going to be done? Is it at one of the RIs? Typically, that's what happened. Who is going to own the IP, in some cases, it goes to A-Star. In some cases, it goes to Rolls-Royce. It doesn't mean that we own it, they can't use it. In fact, the general agreement allows for, obviously sharing of this IP and using it for whatever commercial purpose.
Will you allow a third party to sign up and participate in this program?
In this particular program, no. It's exclusive to Rolls-Royce and A-Star, but there are other collaboration arrangements where we take a much more broader approach. Typically, we call it a consortium approach. And that has happened not yet so much in energy, but it has happened, for example, in our aerospace program. And the next program, which you will see this happening, will be our automotive research program, actually.
Right. So you've gone into the deep ends of the research research activities. So you covered a bit of fuel cells. Tell me about solar. What kind of efforts are you getting?
Solar is quite an interesting area for Singapore as to how it has actually eventually developed. I will have to say that initially, when we did the tech scan, we were not quite sure how far we should push for the solar area, especially in the more conventional silicon-based solar PV technologies. So in fact, initially A-Star decided that we should try to leapfrog and focus on what we call next generation solar PV technologies. Now, in that sense, A-Star decided to take a slightly longer term position with respect to R&D efforts in this area. Now, after we did that, the feedback from industry and from agencies like EDB was that, Well, actually, there's still a lot of interest in silicon-based technologies, and in fact, the market demands silicon-based technologies. It's proven, it's ready, at least technically, if not commercially, if not economically, but technically it's there and so on. So, and with the kind of programs that you see in Japan, in Germany, and now in the US as well, where governments are prepared to put in a lot of money, this is a growth area, you know. So EDB, in fact, then decided that, you know, they're going to take the lead and push for this area to the NRF. Now, NRF is obviously a very important funding agency.
This NRF, can you tell me what NRF is?
Okay, NRF is a research funding agency that has been created under the Prime Minister's office. Okay. And it will take direction from a very high-level committee called the Research, Innovation and Enterprise Committee, which is chaired by the PM himself.
Right. He announced it early this year.
Actually, it was last year.
Early last year.
It was last year, and this year they had another meeting where they were updated on the progress and so on. But so the Research and Innovation and Enterprise Committee actually identified a few areas for Singapore to put R&D effort in. I think initially they targeted 3 areas: the biomedical area, the interactive digital media area, and then the environment and water area. So those were the 3 areas that were decided on. Now, environment and water initially was very focused on water. There was no activity in the clean energy area as such. So EDB decided to push for clean energy under that category of NRF funding, as it were. And in fact, they were asked to be very focused, and therefore they chose solar PV as the area, with some possibility of adding in fuel cells as another area. And so this was actually approved, and that's how the Clean Energy Program got launched with funding from NRF. Now, you can see that in some sense there's this split of activity. Therefore, like A-Star initially deciding to focus on next generation solar PV, and EDB deciding that let's push for perhaps proven ones.
Do what is already available.
Yeah.
But then the question is this: if it's already proven, what do you hope to achieve with the R&D into something that's already proven?
Well, it's certain technologies are proven, but as in many areas of technology, there's always room for improvement, you know. And in particular, in the case of solar PV, there's certainly a lot of improvement possibilities. For example, in reduction of cost. You know, so even if you don't talk about changing anything with the core basic science and technology of the silicon-based cell, there are lots of things to talk about in terms of reducing manufacturing cost, and also
raising conversion efficiency.
Conversion efficiency would actually be possible, but to a limited sense, like if you don't change the basic technology. But there are certainly possible improvements as well, you know, through better ways of perhaps implementing the cell itself, you know, and that is being looked at as well. But what I'm saying is that just as in any other fairly sort of mature technology, there are still areas to work in, and I think that is there's still work in silicon-based technologies. Having said that, Clean Energy Program Office is not going to be just limited to silicon. In fact, they already made it clear that they will be looking at new technologies, thin film-based technologies, for example, using other materials, or even using nano crystalline silicon as well. So that is already identified as areas as well.